This is Earth, our home planet. We've seen it many times from space, and one of the most iconic views is the so-called blue marble, showing our entire globe as a beautiful sphere, surrounded by a thin layer of atmosphere and dominated by a vast ocean. But what if this image was more than just a pretty picture? What if it was a key to understanding worlds beyond our own? In this video, we're going to take that classic blue marble view of Earth and turn it on its head. Let's imagine that our planet was not just mostly water, but completely covered by a global ocean. What would such a water world look like? And, perhaps more interestingly, what kind of life could evolve on such a planet? If Earth had no land, our continents and oceans would still exist. But they would look quite different. Our mountain ranges would be underwater, but that wouldn't stop them from being volcanic. Underwater volcanoes would provide the energy necessary to drive ocean currents that would distribute heat and nutrients around the globe. There might even be giant waves generated by giant underwater earthquakes. But what about the atmosphere? On Earth, our atmosphere is partially supported by our land masses. Without land, it would likely be much denser, full of water vapor and clouds. Humidity would be high, and rain would fall in abundance, though maybe not in the traditional form we know. Water vapor would condense in the cold upper atmosphere to form clouds that would perpetually rain down water. What kind of life would evolve in such an alien environment? There are any number of possibilities. Creatures would likely be streamlined, perfectly adapted for life in the water. Bioluminescent organisms would probably dominate the depths where sunlight couldn't reach. On the surface, there might be huge filter-feeding organisms like whales on Earth that feed on the microscopic plants and animals drifting in the currents. But what about intelligence? Could intelligent life evolve in a world without dry land, perhaps? Intelligent creatures could use bioluminescence to communicate in the darkness. Or they could use echolocation like dolphins and whales on Earth. They might use light to leave messages on the surface of floating debris, or communicate through a series of clicks, whistles, and pulses. Food webs would be complex, just like on Earth. Life would be abundant in the sunlit surface waters where tiny plants called phytoplankton would form the base of the food chain. Denser water in the twilight zone would support larger animals, while the darkest depths near the ocean floor would teem with bizarre bioluminescent creatures. There would also be life on the seafloor itself, including around hydrothermal vents, where superheated water erupts from the cracks in the seafloor. These vents would support giant tube worms and strange alien-looking corals. Some species might even build structures. Imagine coral reefs grown to enormous sizes or giant kelp forests covering the seafloor. In the right conditions, algae could grow to form floating islands. These structures could provide habitats for countless species and could even become the foundation for complex ecosystems. Of course, there are limits to life in a water world. Desalination would be difficult, if not impossible, on a planetary scale. While there's plenty of water, it would all be salty. Salt water is fine for most kinds of life, but some organisms on Earth, including us humans, need both salt and fresh water to survive. Still, life could find a way. Maybe fresh water could be found around hydrothermal vents, or in underground pockets of water that formed when the planet was young. Perhaps life could evolve to extract fresh water from seawater, similar to how some organisms on Earth deal with salty environments. There's also the possibility of life in the sky. If the atmosphere is dense enough, it could support floating organisms, kind of like airships. These creatures might use wings or balloons to stay aloft, or maybe they would simply be very good at riding air currents. Ultimately, a water world would be a place where life could thrive in many different forms. It would be a world of incredible beauty and wonder, very different from our own, yet still recognizable as Earth. And speaking of worlds beyond our own, the concept of a water world is surprisingly close to reality. Scientists believe that many exoplanets are rich in water, possibly even more than Earth. Some are tidally locked to their stars, meaning one side of the planet is permanently lit, while the other is plunged into darkness. These planets could have vast oceans on their daysides, where it's warm enough for water to exist in liquid form. Others could have underground oceans beneath their icy surfaces. Understanding the possibilities of life on a water world could help scientists search for life beyond Earth. It could also change our view of what makes a planet habitable. Maybe the search for life elsewhere in the universe should just focus on planets like Earth, or even just planets with an Earth-like atmosphere. Worlds covered in water may be just as hospitable and could be home to all kinds of wonderful, strange, and beautiful life. So the next time you see the blue marble, our Earth as seen from space, remember that it might not just be a pretty picture. It could be a window into worlds beyond our own. A reminder that the universe is full of endless possibilities, and that there may be more out there than we can even imagine.